Computers are perhaps one of the most important inventions in history, changing the entire world from top to bottom. If transistors hadn't been discovered, or the binary system invented, or electricity harnessed, we'd probably be talking about something entirely different. But as a final product, we have to acknowledge that computers truly brought humanity into a new era. While computers really began to flourish and develop rapidly in the last quarter of the 20th century, their history actually dates back much further, around 2,500 years ago, to the abacus. Yes, comparing today's supercomputers with an abacus might not seem very logical, but at their core, today's supercomputers operate on the same principle as the abacus, performing many calculations far faster than any human could. And the abacus shouldn't be underestimated. It was discovered in the Middle East around 500 BCE and remained the fastest known computing device for roughly 2,200 years until the 17th century. Then, in 1642, a young French scientist and philosopher named Blaise Pascal, only 18 years old, stepped onto the stage. He invented the first mechanical calculator, known as the Pascaline or arithmetic machine, to help his father with tax calculations. This device, with just a few gears, could perform addition and subtraction. A couple of decades later, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz created a machine very similar to Pascal's, but much more advanced. The Leibniz machine could add, subtract, multiply, divide, and even calculate square roots. It also featured a memory-like mechanism, similar to what we see in modern computers. But Leibniz's genius didn't stop there. He also developed the binary system, the foundation of all modern computers, which represents numbers using only zeros and ones. Although Leibniz himself didn't use the binary system practically, a century later, in 1854, the English mathematician George Boole applied it to develop what we now know as Boolean algebra. Today, binary and Boolean logic allow computers to make complex decisions using long sequences of zeros and ones. For the 19th century, the ideas of Pascal and Leibniz were far ahead of their time, and it would take 50 to 100 years for mathematicians and early computer scientists to fully recognize and apply these revolutionary concepts. Of course, Pascal's and Leibniz's machines were not computers in the modern sense. They were advanced calculators, requiring human intervention to perform operations. Real computers, as we know them, can execute a set of instructions stored in memory automatically, without ongoing human involvement. The first person to envision such a machine was Charles Babbage, often called the father of the modern computer. Babbage's machines were designed with the same fundamental elements we see in today's computers: an input, a memory to store complex numbers, a processor, and a printing mechanism. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of precision engineering at the time, he was unable to fully build his machines. Modern reconstructions of his designs, however, have proven that they would indeed have worked. Babbage was continuously assisted by Ada Byron, also known as the Countess of Lovelace, who is recognized as the first computer programmer. Babbage originally intended his machine to be used for navigation on ships and for military purposes. Although he was not fully successful in his lifetime, by the late 19th century, others picked up the baton, including American scientist Herman Hollerith. Hollerith developed a machine called the tabulator, designed to handle the problem of the U.S. Census. Tabulating literally means creating tables, which is where the tab key on keyboards gets its name. Seeing its potential beyond census work, Hollerith founded the Tabulating Machine Company in 1896, which later became Computing Tabulating Recording, CTR, and, finally, IBM in 1924. Another largely unsung hero in early computing history was Vannevar Bush. Working for the U.S. government around the time IBM was founded, Bush built machines capable of similar calculations, including one called the Differential Analyzer, later renamed the Rockefeller Differential Analyzer. Using over 150 electric motors and 320 kilometers of wiring, this machine could handle incredibly complex calculations, though slowly. During this time, World War II broke out, and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt appointed Bush to lead the Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb. In 1945, Bush designed MEMEX, a device for storing and sharing information, which later inspired Tim Berners-Lee in creating the World Wide Web. Bush's contributions, though lesser known, were extremely significant. When discussing the history of computers, we cannot ignore Alan Turing, a brilliant mathematician who left a mark on the 20th century. In 1936, at just 23 years old, Turing published a groundbreaking paper called On Computable Numbers, which described what we now call the Turing machine, a theoretical computer capable of reading data, performing operations, and moving to the next instruction. Turing's ideas would shape the entire field of computing and inspire future developments. Many consider him the father of modern computing. Although Turing was primarily a theorist, he also contributed to practical computing during World War II, helping Britain break Germany's Enigma codes. Today, he is also known for the Turing test, which assesses whether a computer exhibits true intelligence. World War II was a pivotal period for computing. Massive building-sized computers began to appear. In 1938, German engineer Konrad Zuse developed the Z1, the first programmable computer based on binary, in his own home. Shortly after, American physicist John Atanasoff and electrical engineer Clifford Berry created the Atanasoff-Berry computer, a more advanced machine that used electrical switches to store numbers. Switches that were either on, 1, or off, 0. These machines are considered the world's first digital computers. In 1944, Harvard mathematician Howard Aiken, supported by IBM, developed the Harvard Mark I, a 15-meter-long machine with over 3,000 electric switches, capable of complex calculations. Like most early computers, it was initially designed for military purposes. During the war, countries employed thousands of scientists to gain technological superiority. In Germany, Zuse shared his Z2 with the government, but it was deemed unnecessary. Meanwhile, in London, Alan Turing and his team built Colossus in 1943, the first fully electronic computer, using vacuum tubes instead of mechanical relays, allowing for faster and more compact machines. Colossus remained a secret until the end of the war. The ENIAC, created by John Mauchly and J. Presper Eckert at the University of Pennsylvania, is often recognized as the first general-purpose electronic digital computer. It was a true behemoth, 24 meters long, weighing 30 tons, and using 18,000 vacuum tubes. ENIAC sparked a revolution, and with John von Neumann's contributions, computers like EDVAC and UNIVAC soon followed, bringing computing to commercial use. Vacuum tubes, however, had their drawbacks. They were unreliable, sometimes attracting bugs that caused short circuits. A story often cited as the origin of the term bug in programming. The sheer size and weight of computers also limited scalability, so a new revolution was needed. That revolution would come with quantum physics and transistors, propelling computing into a new era. For the continuation of this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.